you for our topical issue today, and of course today we'll be taking a look at the importance of citizens' engagement in the budgeting process, and we hope to deliver to you how far the process is and some of those things that have actually been missing out. We take a look at that in a few seconds, but in studio with me Mr. Patrick Katabazi of the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. You're welcome to this show, Patrick.
The pleasure is mine, and good morning, viewers.
Just to take a look straight away because of time on the budgeting process, because before we expose or bring out anything about this budgeting process, we ought to look at how far the budgeting process. I know with the due processes in any financial year, we are coming to the close of the financial year, and all we expect is the budget, the reading of the budget, the presentation of the budget estimates this financial year 2015-2016. So how far is the budgeting process?
Yes, what viewers must know from the start is that we have had quite a number of budget reforms. The previous cycle was run according to the Budget Act of 2001. Now we have the Public Finance Management Act that became operational February this financial year, and which has revolutionized the way in which our budgeting process is done. What the process is right now about, it has cut the number of months that we have from 11 to 9 months. And so far, as 1st April, we are supposed to have the budget framework papers presented before Parliament. We are supposed to have ministerial policy statements from various sectors presented before Parliament. We must have the budget estimates presented before Parliament and the related documents. So what is happening right now in Parliament is that last week the Committee on Budget did present on the floor of the House their report on the National Budget Framework paper. It is supposed to be up for discussion this week, and from there they are going to make recommendations.
Is 1 week enough for them to discuss all these policy statements for from all those ministries?
Yes, it is certainly not enough, but again, the budget, the internal parliamentary processes envisage that if you have conducted public hearing in as far as this process, internal process is concerned, then what you have on the floor of the House is something that has arisen out of consensus.
Okay.
And certainly, of course, it may not be that enough, but
or something that looks like what you had consensus. You had something you had agreed upon.
Yes, it is. It will have passed through a very rigorous process where you have had different stakeholders, civil society, ministries, and other agencies presenting before different sectoral committees, and those sectoral committees later on then make their presentation to Budget Committee. Budget Committee now chooses some of those proposals that they are supposed to take to the floor of Parliament for approval.
Yeah, Patrick, in matters where you do not have consensus on a number of budgetary issues in the budget process, and for example budget allocations, because I know everyone never gets enough and never actually agrees with whatever comes out, what is done?
What normally happens again is that you have some areas that can be viewed by members of Parliament as areas of wastage, which again brings about an issue of internal reallocations from one vote function to another. But again, you can also have sectoral allocations. In the wisdom of the committee, they think we need to move this money and then support a particular activity in another sector. Now, that is where you have money which is not enough. But again, you have a scenario where when you don't agree on a certain matter, then you put up the matter for a vote to decide again which proposal carries the day.
Thank you, Patrick. In matters of internal allocations where we fail to have consensus, is it not where we have already seen these committees allocate money to defense, allocate money to the president's, to the state house, allocate money, and leaving out the health sector, water and sanitation and agriculture in Uganda?
Yes, for starters, the role of allocation is not by Parliament. The role of allocation is by the executive through the Ministry of Finance, having agreed with various sectors, sector heads. Now, these figures come to Parliament basically for approval. But what Parliament has as its mandate is to interrogate those figures to see whether they reflect the citizens' aspirations and the will of the people. And that is where some contentions, as a matter of fact, don't even happen in the executive, but rather appear in Parliament. And what you see as a struggle in Parliament, in most cases, does result from the pressure that is coming from the people, especially so on budgets that concern education and budgets that concern health.
Now, as the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and with the budgeting process already due in the process, would you please give us an overview of what would be your expectations in the financial year 2015-16?
Of course, most of the processes are almost done. The figures are out there. Yeah. This financial, we project our budget to increase from 14 trillion to 18 trillion.
Yeah, that's true.
What we see, again, we see nominal, very small increments across all sectors. We also note again that just as the same as the previous years, wage and non-wage budget is taking the largest portion. We are seeing limited funding again for development, so meaning that in most of the sectors, what you see as increased budget again will go to people's salaries and people's allowances.
People's salaries, just to a little bit cut you, people's salaries, and you see this addressing the issue of human resource?
Not entirely, because you see the point.
All the money is still going.
The point I'm trying to make is that if you hire people, give them responsibilities, give them work to do. So if, for instance, WBS hires people and does not buy machinery, then they are not going to work.
That's true.
And ultimately, WBS is not going to basically perform its expectations. So basically, that's the point. But of course, we do appreciate that government is the biggest employer. But at the same time, we need to look at the issue of salaries, look at the issue of non-wage, but again, also look at the issue of development. If we talk about the healthcare budget, we don't need only not to look at the issue of salaries for doctors. We also need to look at the issue of infrastructure development and also such equipment that can facilitate the doctors to deliver a sound and robust healthcare system.
We are going to a little bit focus on water, sanitation and hygiene. It's been an emerging problem, especially here in Kampala. You can also attribute that to the recent typhoid crisis, and of course all that arising out of water. And I can see the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group this time taking show on a proposal of the water and sanitation hygiene.
We all agree that water is life.
Yes.
We all agree that we need to be healthy. And we cannot be healthy if we don't have adequate water. We cannot be healthy if our hygiene levels are so down as the way they are. I'll give you an example. In the previous budget, we had, in the health sector alone, we had district grants to the tune of 4 billion.
Yes.
Now, in this financial year, that allocation is not there in the draft estimates. That is an area of concern. In the water and environment sector, we see a very small figure of 2 billion allocated as a district sanitation and hygiene grant, which has been the same, I think, for the last 4 years.
Yes.
And we see a half of it, 1 billion, as the grant, KCCA grant, for issues of sanitation and hygiene. And we are concerned. You will recall that typhoid, cholera, intestinal worms diseases, skin diseases. When you look at the Ministry of Health performance reports, they account for the highest number of the diseases within our population. But again, these are some of the diseases that directly result out of not having adequate water, issues of hygiene, and issues of sanitation. We're increasingly seeing our schools getting vulnerable. You find a school that does not have access points of water. You have a district, I'll give you an example, statistics that are a little bit shocking, in Kotido, in Akapiripit, and some of the districts in the surrounding, especially the Karamojong region, latrine coverage, according to the population abstract of 2014, you will find that latrine coverage is only 9%.
9%?
Only 9%. In other districts of northern Uganda, like Agago, it is at 73. The national average is 68%. So 68 people out of 100 are the only ones with latrine, and there we are not yet going to, we have not yet gone to the quality of toilets. We are talking about just availability of toilets.
Yes, in regard to sanitation, how does that affect us?
So now, if you do not have proper sanitation, your vulnerability to disease, of course, goes up. It increases high risk of disease. And of course, you realize that our biggest percentage of the health budget, again, goes to treatment. And we have forgotten our previous slogan that said, prevention is
better than cure.
Better than cure. So if we cannot invest in prevention, then we are going to increasingly see our budget or our demands in the budget for healthcare going up. And that is why we are saying and calling upon government to put more emphasis on issues of water, issues of sanitation and hygiene, especially so at a community level. But we also want to speak to our ordinary citizens. What happened to our community system that would inspect that people have a latrine, that people have an organized setting where you can wash your dishes, have them dried? What happened to the system that would ensure that people clean their compounds, that people don't sleep with animals in their homes?
Which is actually growing at a very big rate.
Yes.
But don't you think such initiatives are community initiatives which can be done without funding?
Yes, these are community initiatives that can be done without funding. But again, we note that some of these initiatives need a control. And that's where we would need the local government now to be very keen in ensuring that the community development officers are not merely running around with projects that have money in agriculture, in other areas, and do not focus on some of these critical issues like hygiene and sanitation. You would need to have inspectors, health inspectors doing their work. You need to have community development officers at all levels in concert with the parish chiefs and sub-county chiefs to make sure that in the communities where they lead, but also in concert with the LC system, to ensure that in the communities they lead, some of these issues are addressed.
In regard to this, because you are an advocacy group and probably would want you to come out, we saw an increment in the budget allocations, especially from last year in WASH, from 400 billion to 500, and I see you actually still saying that's not enough for you. But how do you, what's your take on the supplementary budgets and then the corruption that involves all that? Supplementary budgets, really, in my own understanding, is that this should arise from circumstances that were not predictable at the beginning. Now, it is supposed to be a supplementary budget, just like your supplementary budget at your household level. You have budgeted to spend 100,000, but along the way, when you are going to town, you got an accident, or maybe something that you didn't envisage happened. That should be, for me, the main reason for a supplementary budget. But where you have a supplementary budget, for instance, for things that are ordinary, I'll give you an example. Some of the hallmarks in the supplementary budget for this year, that you have operationalization of institutions. One of them is the Financial Intelligence Authority. Another one is the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. These are some of the institutions that were envisaged long time ago. So for them to be covered under a supplementary budget, it is a reflection of budgeting discipline. Why wouldn't you rather have some of these things budgeted for at the beginning of the year? I think so.
Then you have money that is going for individual treatment and ABCD. So in my view, a supplementary budget, as is defined right now in the Public Finance Management Act, should be that a supplementary budget that is unavoidable.
And corruption and its effect as well on the budgeting process?
Of course, we all agree as citizens that corruption has taken a center stage in our day-to-day lives, and that it is incumbent upon each one of us to make sure that we fight corruption. And of course, like you have been told before, corruption sometimes is a two-way.
Yeah.
It's not only one entity that is corrupt. So we need a citizen approach towards fighting corruption, and then also ensuring that some of the laws that we have, which in my view are very good laws, are implemented to the letter. Because if we don't, the amount of money that is going, that is wasted in corruption, would transform this society. In my view, we wouldn't be actually borrowing if we are utilizing some of these resources very well. And of course, corruption has become very sophisticated. What used to be really grand theft, really snatching of money and running away, is now very sophisticated. We're talking about now paperwork corruption. Yeah. Where you have a road on paper, but probably it's not as
it runs effectively within the system.
Yes.
And you'll understand that's a road, but until you don't see it.
So in my view, I think it's a general concern. Corruption is a bad vice that all of us as citizens must rise up and fight.
As we conclude this, can you please take us through the importance of a citizen's involvement in the budgeting process, and of course also the citizen's role in holding monitoring service delivery, especially when this money has been put across to us?
Citizens must get involved in matters that concern them, and the budget is one of them. Remember, it is called the national budget. It is planning for your income. You see, it has a relationship with the income because you have to pay taxes at the end of the day. But then also, you must be expecting something in return once you pay taxes. Therefore, citizens' involvement in the budget process is very key, right from the grassroots. People must be aware that the national budgeting process in Uganda starts at a community level, at the parish planning committees.
Has this been done?
This one is done in some places. In some places, it is not done. Why it is not done in some places is because certainly some people are not aware, or maybe certain leaders at those levels are not interested. Now, at a parish planning level, then budgets are supposed to feed into sub-county budgets, from sub-county budgets into district budgets, and then we have other processes with other sectoral engagement, sector-wide approach. Then you have other citizens, civil society engaging and ensuring that we have a final product at the end of the day, a blueprint, a budget that is representative of the aspirations and the wishes of all Ugandans. So it is very important that the citizens take keen interest on the national budget, on how the money arising out of the budget allocation is spent. Because even if you got 100%, rather, even if you got 10% of funding to agriculture, which we have been desiring for a long time, and the money is not put to best use, then ultimately it is a wasted effort. So I encourage the citizens of this country to play a very, very central role in ensuring that they participate at all levels, ensure that every shilling counts.
Yeah, as we conclude this, Patrick, probably there is something you didn't tell us about the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group in regard to what you're doing right now as we conclude this conversation.
Yes, Civil Society Advocacy Group is a coalition of over 70 civil society organizations which has an interest in all-inclusive development, gender budgeting, responsive gender budgets, and also equitable development. So all those organizations come together and front concerns, including concerns in water, sanitation, and health. And then the institution, CSBAG, interrogates those issues to ensure that the voice of a common person comes out, such that at the end of the day we have an all-inclusive budget that is responsive to all needs of all people, the women, the youth, the children, the elderly, the blind, the disabled, name it.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. Patrick Katabazi works with the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CSBAG, and probably will continue to bring you our segments every day as you join us. We discuss national issues, and for today, we will continue and wait upon the sports with Webb Daniels, and of course, he reminds us Champions League last night, Barcelona